Which brings me to another project that were involved in. Actually, in fact, you are an author. Can you tell me a little bit about your writing expertise and what prompted you to get into writing? How did it all come about?
Writing is one of the things I've been doing for a long time, and I believe there are so many people walking around who have the music in them. It never comes out. And I love to write. I love to express myself on paper. And this book here, Africa's Moment, was a book that I wrote not as an academic piece. It wasn't an intellectual piece really in that sense. It was really a very personal statement. It's a book I wrote at a time when I was asking a lot of questions about poverty. Why? What can be done? Is it a lost cause? And there's a very personal reflection on what I felt at the time about what needs to be done and who needs to do what. And maybe I can read for you a couple of small quotes.
Please, by all means, yes, definitely.
There's one here I'll read. I'll start off with. It's actually in the introduction of the book. It's a statement that I believe betrays where the book is going when you listen to what I'm saying in there. It's in the introduction of the book. You can just find it here. It's there we go. That wasn't very good, but it says, Africa is not some removed subject that I can dissect without cutting myself open. I find it difficult to talk about Africa without talking about myself. For I am in a way the subject. For better or for worse, I am inseparable from the continent. If Africa is in a crisis, I am in a crisis. Every time I point an accusing finger, I find the finger pointing back at me as the culprit, the problem, and strangely, even the solution. When I search for who to blame for our woes, I find that I cannot absolve myself from at least part of the blame. When I ask who holds the key to Africa's escape from the dungeons of poverty and backwardness, I find to my great surprise that the key is in my hand. And whenever I have dared to ask the troubling question, does anyone out there really care? The answer has come bouncing back to me like an echo. How much do you care? Now that's not the quote you wanted me to read.
No, but that's a beautiful quote. I want to ask you a question about, it sounds like you're saying that basically the only way Africa is going to be able to take itself out of poverty is that it has to be put back into the hands of the people. They have to lead the movement to rebuild Africa. Am I right?
I think Africa, or any country that is, or any part of the world that is under the curse, I think it is, of poverty, the responsibility is a global responsibility, first and foremost. You cannot say that's your problem, you sort out. It's everybody's problem. But yes, unless the people who are being assisted are able to themselves, unless they can take the responsibility and the lead and the desire and have the will to be able to bring a change to their situation, it's going to be very difficult to bring a change.
Do you think media plays a part also in helping to keep Africa in its current state right now? Is that there are not enough people behind the cameras, or enough people telling the stories that we need to hear? It always seems like the stories that I seem to see on television are stories of despair, hunger, violence, but that's not Africa, particularly not Kenya. I mean, that's not what I think the Western world really understands, that Africa is a beautiful place. You even have a quote that I read, and if you would love to read that quote, that talks about how the Western world sees Africa.
Media is a very, very powerful thing. Media not only influences people from the outside looking in, but it also influences the people on the inside and how they perceive and believe about themselves. So if I continually see negative media images or stories about myself, I begin to internalize those pictures. So it's not just what somebody else thinks about me, it's that I begin to believe that I am also no good, I am also not able. And this, to me, is a bigger tragedy. It's not so much what people have come to think of Africa, what Africans have come to think of themselves because of the power of media. Let me read this quote to you. It says, "For lack of hope, many Africans live from one day to the next, grateful if only they can have something to eat or a place to sleep. They dare not think about tomorrow because tomorrow stares them threateningly in the face, and so they remain hopelessly caged to the present. The view from within these walls is almost unimaginable for those on the outside looking in. And they look into the cage from a distance and wonder why can't the Africans seem to get their act together." So you see this disconnect between what I believe about myself, what you believe about me, what you expect of me, is based on what you see and hear about me. And that's the power of media.